Welcome to Framework for the Family. This is another installment of our podcast. I'm Bomani Tyehimba, joined by my co-hosts, Brian Howard, Zeke Adams, and we have a special guest.
Yeah.
We have a special guest, Pastor Brian Smith.
Yeah.
And we want you to hit that like button, look at our podcast, hit the like button.
And subscribe.
And what's our topic today, Z?
Today we're going to be talking about prayer, the effects of prayer in the marriage, individually as a husband, a praying husband, praying wife. And, as we see a lot, again, we always talk about, statistics, 25% of Christians in America, are being divorced, 70% is initiated by women. It's 28% by non-Christians. Also, 70% is being initiated by women. What are some of the things that we can do to change that? So our podcast is based upon talking about real life Christians who's going through things, and also what the effects of what God is saying and the tools that he's giving us to be able to sustain long-term and healthy relationships. So today we're talking about prayer. Prayer to change things. Prayer.
Yes, sir.
So, we're going to be talking about prayer, man, and how does prayer bind a husband and wife? What are the effects of prayer? How does prayer connect with the children? Obedience, church, when it comes to accountability, when it comes to being able to communicate. What is the effects of prayer? Because we talk about a lot of issues. A lot of therapists will talk about a lot of issues that people might be going through. And I know I've talked to some therapists and they're like, man, yeah, this couple, this situation, but I never hear what are the positive things that are happening. Are they praying together? Is pastors talking about, hey, how is your prayer life? There is a real connection with God. And I think that this topic today is going to really help us dive into that and the effects of helping a family. So, do you want me to start off, or do you, Brian, or do you have some things?
We're going to start with Brian.
Pastor Brian.
Pastor
Doctor.
Brian.
Doctor.
That's right,
Yeah.
he's doctor.
Dr. Brian
Listen,
Smith.
glad to be here.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for the invitation.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to be with the brothers,
Yep.
fellas, and talking on this important topic, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So I think that's a good question that you posed, Zeke. I think there are three things that I think of, just like the preacher, right? The 3 points, right? First is the purpose of prayer. So prayer, just on a very basic level, is like a shared common goal that we all have together.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare that the family all agree. You say what y'all want for dinner tonight, and everybody's gonna tell you something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to have a common destination, a shared goal, a shared thing that we're all going to participate in. I know families struggle with starting traditions. What tradition do we want to do at Christmas time?
Yeah.
But I think prayer is such a effectual means of having a commonality that brings everybody together for a specific purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one thing. The second thing is the words that you actually say of prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. I when I pray over my son, and I'm at night when I put him to bed and I pray over him, he's listening to the words I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay. And the words that I'm saying are like falling on him. So in other words, I'll say, man, Lord, make him a man of integrity. Make him a great leader. Make him be responsible at school. So he's hearing me say these things like, man, my dad wants me to be, or he thinks that I'm going to be integrity and man at school. So the very words itself have a dual purpose. One, you're communicating to God, but two, everybody's hearing
Yeah.
your ideal and your purpose and your passion, what you want to see happen.
Wow.
What's on your heart. You're speaking out loud the very things that you are hoping, wishing, and looking forward to. So just those words. Go ahead.
And I want to add to that, because that just sparks something with, like, every time I go to school, take my kids to school, Joshua and Jacob, as we're driving, either Joshua or Jacob will say a prayer, and whether we're praying in the car. And, the same thing, we pray at night. We have a word of prayer at night. And I sustained, even in my divorce, I sustained a praying system. And I have seen their prayer mentally develop.
Yes. Yes.
Instead of them talking about bless mommy and daddy, they're talking about bless the school, bless the teachers,
yes,
bless the functions that we're going to.
Yes.
Help my brother to get this math test. Their prayer is growing.
Yes.
So that is, I strongly agree with what you're saying. It develops them, and they hear that, and they develop into that praying. You're actually teaching them about prayer.
Yes.
And that communication as you're praying.
Yes.
So
as you throw those words out into the ether, into your house, you're speaking life. You're speaking positivity. And that is effective. And the third and finally, I just think of the effects of prayer. So when you're praying for your hamster, or you're praying for the test, or you're praying for something big or small, when that prayer happens, when the answer to that prayer, it needs to be celebrated in the family.
Yes.
Okay. And be like, look, the Lord came, you got that A.
Yeah.
Don't just skip over the fact that we prayed for it in the car.
I get it.
And then you came home with it like, hey. No, man, the same way we was begging the Lord, the same way we're going to celebrate it.
Yeah.
So I think that when people see the effects of it, when they see the results of it, that needs to be rah, celebrated, highlighted. And what that does for the kids and for the wife and for you, it encourages you to pray more.
Right.
It's like an incentive.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So we should pray with an expectation of an outcome.
Yes.
Not only that God will answer. Sometimes God's answer is no. However, it may be sometimes it's wait. The prayer should be with an expectation that God is going to do something. Okay, whether it's the answer is no, whether the answer is wait, He's going to do something. And so we should look for, what's the outcome of that prayer.
Yes.
There should be some evidence from when the prayer is made, when the prayer is petitioned unto God. There's going to be an outcome.
Now, if prayer was a college course. What you just said is prayer 101. That's your entry level.
Okay.
That's what you're teaching the kids and the wife. That's what you're kind of putting out. Hey, we're praying with an expectation. But as your prayer matures, as your prayer life deepens, as you get more, you understand that prayer is, yes, I'm asking, but there's also humility. I'm not commanding.
Right.
God could say no to me.
Yes.
And I have to walk in that.
And we got to accept the no.
And I got to accept the no.
Right.
And that's when it gets to a different level of maturity, a different level of depth, where your kids now understand, I might not always get that A. Jimmy, the hamster, might not live.
Yeah. He might not pull through.
He might not pull through.
Right.
But.
Or they may not be cured on this side of heaven.
Yeah. And I think that, and taking away from that, prayer is teaching. Prayer is teaching generation.
I like that word.
How does prayer affect individually? Let's just talk about the praying wife. I was speaking to someone, as I told you before, I am doing a little bit of helping out. I wouldn't say marriage counseling, but just being able to help people out from the situations that I've been through. And speaking to a certain lady, and it's just like, it's terrible in the house. She's filing for divorce. The husband doesn't love her, and she feels like he's not being effective in the household. And there's a lot of issues, gray areas with how they are, well, he did this in the past, or she did this in the past. And she is so tired of the whole situation that she's like, I just don't see myself living with this person anymore. I want a divorce. And I asked her, I said, how was your prayer life? How was your connection with God? And she said, well, I said, no, not we, you. Where's your connection with God? Well, I pray, and I'm like, okay, be real, let's be honest. Well, I could probably pray a little bit more. And I said, let's not focus right now on what he's doing or what he's not doing. Let's not focus on what the children are not doing right now. I know you're upset, but let's focus on your connection with God. And to her, that was a hard pill to really swallow because it's happening right now. I think we talked about, being outside of the situation, seeing it, looking in and say, hey, I can kind of dissect it now because I'm not in it. But once you're in it and someone's telling you, hey, you know what, you need to see. You can't see that. And she's like, that's not going to work. And I said, just try it. Call me back in a week. I said, have a devotional at least 30 minutes in the morning before you go to work and tell me how you feel. She called me on last Thursday, and said, I did what you told me to do. I ain't like it. But I realized I was more calm. I was more able to listen. And I was understanding some of the frustrations that my husband was dealing with me. Go ahead.
I want to jump in, man. I don't want to cut you off, though.
Go ahead.
I want to follow your lead, Pastor. There's 3 points.
Go ahead.
Okay, and for me, I'm always talking about the mechanism of things, right?
Yeah.
So
you're a detail guy.
There's 3 things going on in prayer: standard, focus, and interaction.
Yes.
When you talk about setting the standard, God is the standard. He sets the standard. He tells you what you're supposed to be doing. Even if we're putting God out of the picture, and you say a husband and wife have to come together, let's say, they just don't believe in God, whatever. There still has to be a standard.
Yes.
You can't come together without a standard. So the thing that prayer does automatically hones you in on what God is and his standard. And now we got to focus. Like you said, you pray over your son, you repeat these things, a man of integrity, this, that, and the other. I want to be responsible. All these things are part of the standard. And by just repeating them out loud, you're focusing your intent. Like, this is who I want to be. This is how I want to, this is who, and they've done studies and shown that just simply telling a child, this is what I expect of you, this is what, it increases their likelihood of following through on these things.
Yes,
well, even though we're not children, it works the same for us. So we got standard, we got focus, and then we got interaction. So now we come together and there's functional things that happen between us, but also we invite God into that situation. And that's where believing not just in the mechanism of prayer, but the personhood of God, you're inviting him into your situation to, what's the right word? To interact. Let's just use that word with you, with your spouse, to shape things. You give God permission to do things, even if you don't like it.
That's powerful. Right? That is a powerful, you're giving, yes, that's so powerful. I'm going to, go ahead. I'm going to piggyback on that.
And then the last thing I just want to throw in, I think often we want God to change our circumstance, and he's not above that. He wants you to have a good circumstance, but he's more interested in changing you. And if you change, then your circumstance changes automatically.
Yeah, and what I saw, I saw in this person and the female, there was just, we talk about submission. We've talked about that. There was some gray areas. But
the S word.
Yeah, submission. Can you submit? But, understanding prayer, you would see a lot of things that you didn't see. God is vocal. Through the Bible, there was acts of speaking out, being able to speak and depart the water, being able to heal, there's always vocal that it presented a healing power in the speech. Prayer is designed for the exact same thing. When you pray out loud over your house, when you pray over your children, when you pray over your food, when you pray with your family in worship, it sets the bar of what God is going to do. And it brings him, just like you said, it brings him into the midst of the situation at the time of you speaking positive things about what he's going to do for the family or the child.
But I got a question.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, we ask questions all the time.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
What happens when you're doing it by yourself? So you're talking about in the terms of partners. What if your partner doesn't want to pray with you?
And that is, you know,
There's no difference. Can I just throw it out?
Throw it out there.
Difference. There's no difference. And just going back to the standard, focus, interaction, right? Mm-hmm. So you still, by praying to God, there's the standard. You understand this in your mind. Mm-hmm. You're telling God, this is my situation, but if you're listening, God is also telling you who he wants you to be. Focus, because you got to listen. But then interaction. You and God are interacting. And let's be honest, how are you going to have any reasonable relationship with your husband or wife and you don't have any relationship with God? It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So that the same three elements are always in play, even if you're not praying with your spouse.
I'm gonna be really real. I'll be honest. That didn't work for me.
What didn't work for you?
My spouse really wasn't a praying person. Mm-hmm. You know, we always say that, and that will go to being equally yoked. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, I implemented prayer in the house, but it was just me. And I think that I prayed over the family. I wanted us to be more prayerful. Eventually, obviously, we're not together. Situations that happen. But being truthful, just being very transparent. You know, I won't say it was. You know, you never can say that it was one person. It's always two people, whether you're together or you depart from each other. I see prayer as my foundation and how I grew up. Mm-hmm. My mom was a praying woman. She prays for us every single day. I get a text every day from Sister Adams, from Mary Adams, and I love you and I'm praying for you. Mm. That has been installed in me. Mm-hmm. And that's a good question that Pastor Brian brought up because, man, we could talk about prayer, but, you know, me personally, and I'm pretty sure some people that is out in the audience that might be divorced or getting a divorce, and they might be praying people. We're just going to keep it real. That is not working out for you. It doesn't mean that you stop praying.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it doesn't work.
Right.
Okay? Because what has happened in prayer is that my children are still growing as a family, even that I am not married. We're still bonding. We're still able to talk about situations. They still see me as someone, as their father, and someone that they could communicate with if they have a problem because of prayer. And I'm teaching them too to be able to develop a relationship with God on their own, for their own mental health, for them to understand what's going on from school. My kids, they wanted to ride the school. Well, I was supposed to pick them up. And I said, you guys need to ride the school bus. Dad, we don't want to ride the school bus. I said, why? They be cussing and stuff on there. That's just not us. We're not feeling that right now. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's like, wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean prayer doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It does work. Mm-hmm. And to get back to what you were saying about Brian, on you still pray over the family. I still pray for my ex. Mm-hmm. I still pray for her. Mm-hmm. And God is he going to answer my prayers today? He will answer when he wants to answer. Mm-hmm. But I know for a fact that in prayer, it's out of my hands. Mm. My prayer is asking God to put it into his hands. Mm. Okay? And whatever that may be, that is his will. I don't know what the long term or what the effects of my prayer, but I know that God is going to answer it. And I know that he is going to be in the midst of that prayer. So whatever happens, I know that on my side, my children is going to be okay. My family is going to be okay.
Thank you for sharing that and being real, being vulnerable. As you were talking, in my experience in dealing with and talking with couples, I understand that individuals will not pray because they feel guilty about a bad decision that they made.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just their punishment for their poor choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So for instance, I knew God wasn't in this marriage, but I went ahead and got married anyway.
Yeah.
And because now I'm dealing with the repercussions of an ungodly choice, I'm just going to have to suck it up and deal with the consequences and the negativity that comes from it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to beg God to bail me out because I put myself in the situation.
Mm.
And some people don't pray because of that. They're like,
Wow.
you know what? I knew I messed up, so I'm just not going to pray.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a bad situation worse.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we admit that's a toxic attitude? Right?
But that's what happens. That's
It's the me factor. It becomes the I factor. And yeah, it becomes, I get it.
And that happens not just in marriages, that's in life.
Yeah.
You do something nasty or shady the night before, you don't want to go to church the next day.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You cuss out your wife or you have a bad experience, you don't want to go to God because there's a little bit of guilt,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of shame,
Yeah.
a little bit of I messed up.
Yeah.
I knew better, but I didn't do better.
But I kept on saying it.
I kept on saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And then our view, here it go. This is it. Our view of God, this perception we have of God, makes us stay away from him.
You know, that's weird though, in a sense. I mean, it's not, this is how sin and human minds work. Crazy. But in a sense, it's sort of evidence of the process we were just talking about. The fact that you feel ashamed at all is evidence that you know what the standard is.
Oh, definitely.
Right? And evidence that, okay, you obviously believe in God and the standard.
Right.
Now all you have to do is choose to focus and interact.
Right.
That's the next two steps, right? Because if you're not focused, I mean, we lose focus all the time. Like, I messed up and my wife is mad and now she does something, but I'm focused on what she did instead of what I did to cause the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she didn't have to act like that, this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't got nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I only have control over me and stay focused,
Right.
right? And then choose how to interact. I mean, for me, I just had to come to the conclusion that I don't want a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So even if my wife is not acting the way I would want her to, I'm gonna still pursue her in love.
But some people might not
I
be.
just have to choose to do it.
Right. But some people might not be in that mindset. And that is what we're talking about. Like I was talking about the getting back to where and speaking to the lady when she called me on Thursday and was saying, hey, these are the things that I'm starting to see and understand about my behavior. There were some attitudes, very feisty. After I talked to her husband, it was like, the words were, I'm going to cut you like a knife. When I get upset, I'm going to say some things to you that is going to just destroy who you are. And, we have families that are like that. And in the beginning, they were really good friends and I love them. And even though I'm talking about, we talk about being emotional in love at the altar. Everything's emotional, but there's no foundation. And I was speaking to her about what she was going through that week, and she says, I see it. And I'm like, God wants you to have foundation. Marriage is a covenant, and you have to understand the covenant. And once you understand what he's asking you to have a connection with him first. Okay? Now, yeah, you might think that you might be in the wrong relationship, but as a wife, understanding what your role is by understanding what God is asking from you to be a wife.
Standard.
The standard. And she said, okay, I understand that. And I said, just continue to keep developing your relationship with God. I know you got all these problems, but if you can mentally, and I always talk about mental health and how people are viewing things without that connection and how they're viewing it with the connection is totally different. Okay. And my goal is for them to get that connection with God, and then they'll start to see what I'm saying and what other people are saying in a different wiring. It's a different connection. So she said, okay, I will. I got a text this morning. Sorry for my throat. Got a text this morning, and she was like, prayer works. I don't like you, but prayer doesn't work.
Come on.
And I said, okay. I don't like you, Zeke. Prayer works. And
what a text.
Yeah. And I can see, as we're talking about a praying family and what is the actual outcome of a praying wife and a praying husband, I think a praying wife, it actually helps her to be able to understand more of submission, being a leader, being a counselor, being able to listen to her husband, being able to give advice to her husband. With that connection with God, that mindset, and what God is asking from you in the Word, it asks you to be a great helpmate, which we talked about that a wife is a helpmate. And understanding what that helpmate is what we're losing focus in the community today. We're losing focus in what a man's role is. So how prayer is, I feel, that personal connection with God is the first thing, the initiating from a woman or the wife that has a connection or develop a connection, and the husband that develops a connection. And those two things come first. That brings them in focus of what their roles and how they communicate, how they raise their children, how they and their children raise their children. That prayer life brings that community of people, families together in that way. And people have lost that. They'll be telling me about all their problems, like you said something earlier about that. It's me. It's me. I made a bad mistake. I made a terrible mistake. I should have never married this dude. This dude's a scrub. He ain't making no money. He's always talking about stuff. He ain't helping out with the family or whatnot. Or she's not helping. She's not working her. She's always talking, telling me what to do, but she always not helping out around the house, not cooking. It's always about I. When you go into these type of conversations with these families that are breaking or falling apart, it's the I factor.
Oh yeah.
I. This is what she's not doing to me. I don't like the fact that he's this, or I don't like the fact that she's doing this. That connection with God has been severed, and you can see that from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's severed.
Yeah.
What's your prayer life like? Every time.
Yeah.
So prayer in the Christian community and the Christian family is a powerful tool.
Powerful. The challenge with human beings is we all have a limit.
Yeah.
There's only so much we can take until we break down. God is limitless. Don't matter how many times you call him, mess up, annoy him, you can't deplete his resources.
Right.
Us, we get depleted.
Yeah.
Right.
Eventually we get, you heard that term, fed up.
Fed up, yeah.
You've heard the term, it was a straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
Like we got to that point where we cannot go anymore.
Yeah.
Women, their hair will start falling out.
Wow.
Men will start graying faster.
Yeah.
And their body just, that virility and strength, it saps you. Okay? Because humans have a point.
Right.
But you said something that was key. You kept talking about that connection. that connection. And yes, in your marriage, in life, you're going to reach a breaking point.
Yeah.
There's going to be something that's going to happen where you're like, okay, that's enough.
Right.
But that connection that you have with God gives you that supernatural strength to keep going. You know, it gives you that extra where you're like, man, I don't know how I made this. I don't know how I made it.
I don't know how I got here.
I don't know how I got it. But somehow God is,
You're right.
you know, because, you know, one thing about when we talk about prayer and relationships, man, crisis reveals character.
Yes.
You're going to find out who you're laying next to real fast.
Right.
When the money dries up
Yep.
and things start going a little ugly,
Real quick.
you'll find out exactly who you're with. So crisis does reveal character. And when you don't have that connection and crisis hits, you hit a point where I can't go anymore.
Right.
But you need to find a source. We all know what the source is,
Yes.
right? But you got to find that well that you could tap into that can keep you going. I don't know how many of y'all watch a Mike Tyson fight.
Oh my
Was that a
goodness.
fight?
The Mike Tyson.
Was it a fight?
Was it
a fight?
It was
I don't know. The Mike Tyson.
I don't even know what it was. He just
That was the.
I don't know what that was.
I don't know what that was, man. Babysitting. I think.
Yeah.
It was a paycheck.
It was a paycheck. Yeah, that's what it is. Mike Tyson
Paycheck.
charity
Yeah.
fund.
That was, that
Make
was
a wish.
paycheck.
Oh, man.
But the point I'm making is he ran out of gas.
Yeah. Early on.
Early. Because he didn't have the legs anymore. You know,
Right.
he's just not conditioned. He ran out of gas.
Come on, man.
And-
Those legs was
his legs.
that leg was terrible.
About 60-year-old legs.
Yeah,
man.
it was.
It's seen a lot of fights.
It's seen a lot of fights, man.
Better than most, but not good enough to compete on that level. But the point I'm trying to say is he ran out of gas.
Yeah.
And we all run out of gas.
Yeah.
We all run out of gas. So I think that's what you hit it on the head. To me, that resonated when you said you got to be connected. Because if you're not, naturally, humanly, you're going to hit your wall.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have anybody walking you through that, what you going to do? You're going to bet. It's called self-preservation. Because you're trying to protect your mental health. You're trying to protect your physical health. So it's like the only way I can survive is just remove myself from the situation. Right. But Jesus didn't remove the 3 Hebrew boys from the fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just came in there with them.
That's right.
Yeah, I ain't gonna take you out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be with you in the fight.
I'm gonna be with you in it.
Yeah.
That's that connection.
That's the
Exactly.
connection.
The circumstances are not gonna change, but I'll walk with you in it.
Yeah. So I want to circle back to something you said earlier about, about the guilt we feel because we know we did something wrong. You made a point about, God wasn't in that my choice for marriage or that ungodly situation. And I want to circle back to that because I want our viewers to understand that even if you are in a marriage that God would not have been the person that God would want you to be with, or they don't have those characteristics, that you are still in their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You don't have a license just to say, well, God, he wasn't the person I should have married, or she wasn't the person I should have married. So, you know what? God will understand. I need to go ahead and get a divorce.
Oh, I hear that all the time.
Yeah. So the thing is that when you're in that situation, because there's scriptures in there about even if you're connected or you're married to an unbeliever, okay, that there are certain things that you can do as a believer that will win them over, because they will see you with your relationship with God. Okay,
that's a hard one.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
That's a hard one.
And so when it comes to prayer, prayer is going to get you to that position where, you know what, if I'm praying to God to show me me, to show me me, as to what I should do, God's going to show you. He's going to show you some things that you should be doing.
True that.
All right, and you may not want to do them. Like the friend that you were talking about, or the lady that you were talking about, she said, what was the text? I don't like you, prayer works.
Yeah.
The undertone of that text is that I've been praying, and God has revealed something about me,
who I am.
Who I am, okay?
Yeah.
And I've got to make some changes. So the preservation of that marriage, even if it's not the one, your choice you would have made had you been on a different level with God, the prayer life if you're going to listen to those things, it's going to cause you to change some things about yourself. And that's how you can stay in the marriage. Even though and like you said, it's going to be difficult. I'm not going to say that it's going to be hard. I mean, that it's going to be easy, because you've got to come to grips with some of your shortcomings, and you're going to have to make some changes. You can't you can't be to the point where I say, I'm just ready to exit this thing. No,
Right.
there's going to be some challenges.
Yeah.
God is going to call
Yeah.
you to do something different, to stop pointing fingers, so to speak. So just want to circle back that even if you are in a quote unquote sort out as an ungodly choice, that you got to stay in it, and in fact you got to pray more.
That's right.
All right, and God, here's the thing: God has a solution for it.
Now, I got a question for that.
Yes,
Okay, because I never.
we can't have that Nineveh spirit.
Okay.
We don't want
I'm-
Nineveh.
I'm-
we
okay.
don't want. God sent you to Nineveh, the priests of them people, but your spirit is, God, I want you to kill them. I don't want them to change.
I get what you're saying.
Yes.
But I would never, if someone was to come to me and say, hey, you know what, my husband or my wife is physically abusing me.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that's different. I'm not talking about those situations.
yeah.
I'm not talking about situations where you're.
And let's make that clear.
Yeah, I
if
want to
it's-
make
if
that
it's
clear.
something that is
Some
Right.
extreme
Yes.
neglect
Yeah.
or physical abuse.
Yeah,
Right.
we're
or
talking
something
about
like that.
Right.
people who are saying, you
Right.
know what, and I've asked this, are you being physically abused? Well, no, I just don't like him anymore. I
Yeah,
fell out of love with him.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or we've grown apart.
That's an
Right.
emotional.
That's emotional.
Yes, right,
okay.
right.
And I always say, if you fell out of love, you weren't in love. And that's how love doesn't work that way.
Right.
You wasn't in love in the first place. But if, again, marriage is sacred, marriage is a covenant, and I agree with Bomani.
You agree with me?
Finally, yeah, we finally agree on some things. I agree with you because regardless of who that person is, and you feel like maybe 10 years later you made the wrong mistake,
Yeah.
God will never tell you to divorce.
No.
Right.
Good example, my mom and my dad got married when they were teenagers, had 8 kids. My dad was an alcoholic. He came home, he spent that paycheck on alcohol. My mom, she became, she was smoking cigarettes, tobacco chewing. When she decided to give her life to God, it was the turnaround point for her generation of kids.
Mhm.
And the kids.
My mama.
My dad came home from work and she said, God has told me to tell you, I'm not going to leave you, but you need to put that bottle down. And she told him for 2 years, every day, I love you, but you need to put this thing down. He wasn't a praying man. 2.5 years later, he would sit at the table and listen to a prayer. And within the time that she started with him, I guess by the 8th kid, he was a praying man. My dad went on to baptize 283 people in the literature evangelist work
Amen.
before he passed.
Amen.
And now God didn't take the health situation away from him. He still had it. Even though he quit drinking, he quit smoking, but he still did it for so long. But God changed his outlook because of prayer. And my parents had a bond that cannot be broken because of prayer.
Amen.
So nowadays, I mean, if you look at a person wrong, they'll get a divorce.
Yeah. Why is that? Can you make it easier?
I don't think divorce is what, I don't know. So there's a lot of studies out there, and I've been doing a lot of searching on why this, from what I found out, the divorce rate really started in the early 70s if we want to jump off the spiritual,
the increase in
increase in divorce rates, and trying to tie it down to one thing. I've heard that when birth control showed up on the scene, it started to kind of get out of whack. A lot of which we don't really talk about. I guess a lot of movements of how the working woman, all that stuff played a factor. So the woman is not teaching the children, and her part is falling down. Then the kids grow up in the next generation, they're not teaching their kids. So it kind of just, there's a lot of different moving parts, a lot of factors.
Yeah, that play a part of it.
But the main factor that we have also, scientists and therapists have realized, Christianity and being involved in some type of form of Christianity sustains a lot of marriages. Having a focus, I think you said it earlier, having a goal, a purpose. I told a couple, what is it called? The mission statement at Shiloh. What is your family mission statement? Who are you guys as a family? I want you to write it out.
I like that.
Put a big picture of the whole family and write out, you and your husband write out a thing of what are you guys' mission statement? Okay? And that builds a connection that woman say, hey, you know what? I'm a part of this, and that husband, I'm a part of this, and the children, we're going to have you guys a part of this as well. So being able to have that connection and that spiritual, that prayer life brings forth energy to bond. That's the jail, to bond families. Regardless if you believe in it or not, it works. It always works. And we're hoping that people on the podcast will be able to take away from this episode of how prayer will actually change. It will change situations in your personal connection. So have your personal connection first. Get a connection with God. Those of you that are not praying, I would give 7 days of prayer with God. Just 7 days of prayer. See your positive energy start to come out. See what God is doing in your life, and see what some of the situations that you couldn't see before with your spouse, being angry or upset, that you start to be able to understand where they're coming from. And that's what that lady was saying. She's like, we had a heated conversation that's been lasting for 2 weeks. And it was about Chinese food.
What was it about?
Chinese food.
Okay.
Something happened at that Chinese restaurant that went bad for 2 weeks.
Well, that's usually how it happens.
Wow.
Something small.
Something small.
Yeah.
And they were not seeing eye to eye, and it kept regurgitating.
Wow.
And she said, I finally understood that what he was asking for me to do for him, because he couldn't do it, and he felt bad or got upset because I overlooked and I wasn't listening to him. And we were in a conversation at the restaurant, and I finally heard him, and I'm like, it's as simple as that. Being at peace with yourself and having that structure with God and communicating with God, it changes who you are as a person. As a man, I'm trying to keep us talking about prayer when it comes to a man's role. Obviously, man is the head of the household. And I felt like at certain times, even though I had a praying spirit, being able to develop prayer, I would say in some areas, being able to understand what I was praying for in the relationships. I think there should be more. I felt in my life, in some of the situations that I was struggling with, I wasn't praying. I was praying over the family. I really wasn't praying for the struggle. Okay, I really wasn't praying for the problems that I was having. I had frustrated prayers. I can't say that my connection at that time was strong. I'm gonna be real.
Can I ask you this then?
Yeah.
Now, at that time, I think we might have talked about this before, but
Mm.
do you really consider yourself to have been praying or just venting?
I would call it venting.
Yeah, see, because
Yeah.
usually if we consider prayer a conversation, at some point you got to stop and listen.
Yes.
But I'm ticked off right now. God, blah, 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 blah. All right, amen. There was no prayer. There was no conversation had.
Yeah.
And so I told God off and left. Like we didn't.
Yeah. I agree with Brian. What Brian said earlier. In being in praying, especially as men, we got a lot that we have to bear as men, and to be able to be in a situation, I think I'm going to say what you said earlier. When you're in that situation, it's very hard to see it until when you step out the situation and you've been gone for a while. And I'm like, man, I should have been praying about this instead of me coming home, seeing the house in a mess, and I go to my secret, Lord, please help. And I'm saying help fix her,
right?
But what I should have been saying is help fix me to be able so she can see the light in me, and then therefore that will change the light in how I'm reflecting outward instead of me coming in not saying nothing, shutting the door and praying, Lord, do something here.
Send out some fire.
Send out some fire.
Can we do another look?
Light her up. Light her up, Jesus.
I think there's a mechanism here again, me and these mechanisms. But I think a lot of time we're asked to make choices.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like morally even. We talk about making choices. This is the thing you got to do.
Yeah.
But a lot of us are asking like, how do we get to that point? And you have to have a certain experience.
Yeah.
You have to have, and so I think what was interesting about the story you told, the whole, I don't like you, but prayer works.
Yeah.
Yeah. That transition from not really praying to the recognition that prayer works started with a single action. Just go pray.
Mm-hmm.
Just do this for 2 weeks. Do this for 7 days. Just 7 days, twice a day, whatever you. Just pray.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you start off with an action. It's very simple, and this is literally how people grow. Look at the little baby. They don't know anything. They're not choosing anything. They're just doing random stuff. Mm-hmm. And as they do stuff, they go, "Oh, that's what happens."
Right.
Right. Same thing's happening with grown people. Let's just go ahead and do this. Just let's pray every day.
Right.
And then you're gonna have some reaction, some interaction between you and God. You're gonna gain some knowledge from that. And you're gonna say, okay. You can move from that to actually making a choice because now you have experience. You say, okay, God, I see what you want me to do. Mm-hmm. I see what you revealed to me about me. Mm-hmm. What am I going to do about it?
Right.
So, real quick, just do, know, choose.
Right. And the people, and I want to clean this up too, because the people that are praying and they're saying, hey, it's not working. I agree. I've been there. But it's the type of prayer. Mm. I think what we just talked about, even in my situation, my prayer was not based upon God healing or dealing with me because I was upset at my spouse. Mm. I was praying for God to change my spouse.
Mm. Right.
I know how to pray, but I was praying the wrong prayer. Mm-hmm. What I should have prayed is, God, help me, calm me, come into me, so therefore I can be able to understand the situation. Mm. And through helping me and you working through me, help me change the situation.
Mm. Yeah.
And these are for experienced prayers, okay? Because we could be praying for God to send down fire and brimstone on their spouse. And God said, no, you might be the one that has the problem. Mm-hmm. And I need to change you so I can change your family. Mm-hmm. So as men, being the head of the household, our prayer dynamics, I always say this, I think a wife's prayer is different from a husband's prayer. Sure. And together, their prayer comes and it makes the family, but two different connections. Mm-hmm. So as a husband, I think that, in praying, we should get more in understanding our family dynamics. ask God to help us out with what's going on and with ourselves. So therefore, the energy, we can have better energy for our spouses, for our family. And prayer will change that as well.
And you know what's interesting? The thing that you are known for the most is what people end up respecting you. Even the things that they're annoyed about. Like say you have a hobby horse. Say it's something that you're really into.
Right.
Like you're into football, or you're into health, you're into bad. And every time somebody comes around, that's all you talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And when they think about Bomani, when they think about Zeke, like, oh, Zeke, he's the guy with the cars. You know, they have that one thing about you. And what happens is the thing that people might be annoyed with at first or bothered by at first, they end up respecting you for in the long run.
Yeah.
They kind of realize, wow, he's not joking with this. This is who they are. This is what they do.
Yeah.
And they're consistent. And I think when you talk about being a man, and respect is big for a man, I think when you consistently, habitually, rain, sleet, or snow, set that prayer dynamic in your house. Sometimes it won't always be good. Sometimes the kids are just like, I'm so done with this. When they start thinking about you, you know, Dad is really serious about this prayer thing.
Yeah.
You know, like they start really kind of equating you to prayer.
Yeah.
Because they see how insistent you are, and though it's not always perfect, though it's not always, you know, a moment where Jesus comes down on the mountaintop, it's not always going to be beautiful.
Right.
But it's just a consistent thing that you do that I think people end up respecting you for later on, and just kind of say, okay, well, you know, because even your wife has that one thing that they're like, that's their hobby horse, right? Like, geez, they're always this way or that way, you know, and then you just like, wow, that must be really important to them.
Yeah.
And then you end up kind of respecting it. And I want to say this other thing too, as I was talking about prayer. You know, for me, as a man, prayer was very hard because I am a Mr. Fix It. I want to do things.
I am too.
I want to be able to accomplish things and do things.
Yeah.
And I don't want to slow down to talk to God about it. You're like begging God, like, God said, I gave you the power, you do it, right?
Yeah.
So I always didn't like, it was a struggle for me to pray because I felt like instead of praying, I should be doing.
Right.
And prayer is just, Lord forgive me, you know, those who are watching, this was my younger, immature mind.
This was way back in the day.
Way back in the
day. Yeah.
But prayer was just a waste of time. When I could be accomplishing more than I'm just talking to God about. And so I had to learn, the Lord taught me that everything I hope to accomplish today, next week, next year begins with prayer.
Yeah.
I used to think it was the other way around. Let me accomplish, then I pray.
Right.
And God says, whatever mountain you're trying to climb, you have to start it with your Creator, the one who gave you purpose, the one who made you, the one who designed you to live this life.
Right.
He equipped you with the tools for you to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
So you need to check in with the boss first. Check in with the foreman on the job. All right, Mr. Foreman, today I'm putting up beams. Today I'm going to be doing floor work.
I get it. Yeah.
And the foreman says, okay, you're clear to do this work.
Yeah.
He has to give you the clearance to do what you're itching to do.
Right.
But he might say, nah, we're not doing beams today. Well, why not? I'm ready. I got all the material. This ain't a good day. Because I know what's coming down the road. And you start the beams, or tornadoes going to hit and it's going to mess up your whole work. So don't do it today. And you're like, you're killing me right now. So I say all that to say that I think that for men, it could be challenging because we are about accomplishing, but I think
goal driven.
Yeah. But I think if we look at it in its correct terms, it really is. It does line up because God does help you accomplish those purposes. So,
I got a little slogan out of what you just said.
What's that?
Praying is doing.
Ooh.
Okay. You've been
Praying,
silent the whole time. Now you just
praying
came up with that powerful. I'm proud of you, Bomani.
doing.
You know,
That's what you title the podcast.
Praying is doing.
That's
Praying
it.
is doing.
And with that, we're going to title the podcast, Praying is Doing.
Praying is doing.
So, again, we thank you, Dr. Brian Smith.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for
having me.
And guiding us through this discussion on prayer, how it impacts the family. And this is Framework for the Family. want you to subscribe to our podcast. We want you to hit that like. And also, we want to hear some comments, see some comments in the comment section.
Yeah.
And we'll join you at another time, another topic on Framework for the Family. Thank you for joining us.
Goodbye.
Bye.